So this was truly an incredible chapter. This is pretty much as good as it gets in the current landscape of battle manga, in my opinion. And I gotta say it, this is yet again another 10 out of 10 chapter. This is the third 10 out of 10 chapter I've given this year, which is very unusual, and they've all been One Punch Man. So bravo to One and Murata, and also bravo to the team that provides us with these translations. Like I said before, it's pretty much a thankless job, and they don't really have to bust their butts to get this out for us, but they do it anyway. So thanks, guys. But anyway, coming off at the end of the previous chapter, we saw Garo and Saitama exchange punches, and we were wondering, you know, is there a chance that this was like blood coming out of Saitama's mouth? But we weren't convinced, of course. We assumed that it was probably debris, and yeah, it turns out that was, debris. But after we go through a sequence of Saitama just easily handling Garo through some of the hyperspace portals, he eventually just comes down and chops him in the back of the neck with a huge impact. Hey, also guys, if you like my One Punch Man content, please subscribe if you haven't already. I'm 5,000 away from 200,000 subs, so if you can help me with that, that would be awesome. Thanks, guys. He's like, what's wrong? You said you were gonna copy me when I'm serious and surpass me, didn't you? Go ahead and try. Isn't that the whole point of this? And Garo's like, I don't get it. I'm countering him with just as much power, but the next attack hits even harder. I can't keep up. And then we see this graph of Saitama and Garo. And as Garo is becoming parallel with Saitama on the graph, Saitama eventually surpasses him going upwards, until he just completely leaves him behind. This is signifying the difference in the growth of their power. As we know, Garo can become stronger progressively as the fight goes on. It was stated in his fight against Darkshine that essentially when he's pushed against an opponent who is strong enough, he can basically rise to the occasion and become as strong as he needs to in order to defeat that opponent. I mean, I'm paraphrasing and that's simplifying it, but that's more or less what Garo is also known for, aside from just having the ability to copy techniques. But first, let's talk about the sponsor of this video, Cook Unity. Cook Unity is the first chef-to-consumer platform delivering freshly prepared, pre-selected meals right to your door weekly. Cook Unity connects a diverse group of talented chefs that cook delicious, inventive meals fresh every day in regional micro kitchens, not warehouse production facilities. Chefs cook meals with real ingredients, nothing artificial, with humanely raised meat and organic ingredients when possible. Cook Unity chefs offer up a wide range of meals with over 7 different dietary preference filters, including vegan, paleo, and gluten-free options. Chefs focus on flavor and inventiveness while leaning into a wide range of different types of cuisines to bring you the best meals possible. Meals are delivered fully cooked, so all you have to do is heat them up. No more cleanup and meal planning. Through a weekly subscription, you can select from a robust and ever-changing menu of handcrafted meals. Also, the subscription is super flexible and you can pause, skip weeks, or cancel at any time. Tonight, I'm eating lamb ragu with cheese ravioli, which was made by Chef David Aiden. I also got beef ragu with zoodles made by Chef Andres Mendez, and Texas beef fajitas made by Chef Maribel Rivero. Guys, I'm being 100% honest here. I wasn't really expecting it to be this good. I've had 3 meals so far, and they honestly taste like they came from a restaurant. And the 2 other things that I really like most about Cook Unity is the portion sizes. They're not small. These meals filled me up, and preparing them is so simple. So guys, go to cookunity.com/Zhoniin, or simply check out the link in the description below. Make sure you use my code Zhoniin50 to get 50% off of your first Cook Unity meals, so you can try them out for yourself. Thanks, guys. But Saitama, on the other hand, goes to the next level in this regard. It's just that he needs an excuse to use more of his power, because he ostensibly has an infinite amount of it. As we know, Saitama removed his limiter. That's how he became as strong as he is. Therefore, he has no limit, so he can, in theory, always become stronger. And so far, we've seen him only push so much until facing off against Cosmic Fear Garo. And since Cosmic Fear Garo could copy Saitama's techniques and imitate his current level of power, naturally Saitama's own power adapts and then surpasses that. So that's pretty much the explanation as to how Garo was able to hang with Saitama up until this point, you know, going tit for tat with serious strikes and whatnot. But since Garo has not removed his own limiter, he will never, ever be able to become as strong as Saitama. And this leads him to saying, at this rate, one of these punches is eventually going to kill me. Even now, Saitama was continuing to grow. His rate of growth, which had gone gone unnoticed by anyone, since there was nobody remotely on par with his strength, suddenly began to soar exponentially, due to an upsurge of emotion like none he had ever experienced. And now that Saitama is using this insane level of power, the most we've ever had to see him use in the series, he does one of the craziest feats you'll probably ever see in battle manga. As to where he does a serious sneeze that like explodes the surface of Jupiter. Yes, he is exploding the surface of Jupiter from a sneeze. And this is how big Jupiter is compared to Earth, by the way. So as I've been saying these last couple of weeks, there's many levels to Saitama's power that we, the audience, still haven't seen yet. And as the series goes on, his feats will get progressively more and more insane, to the point of where he truly will exemplify that he is, as I call him, the one above all. And to be honest, I didn't expect to see this, especially at this point in the series, and not from a sneeze of all things. And rightfully so, Garo is like shocked, and he says a being like that shouldn't be allowed to roam free on Earth. This is an important line here because this is going to be a theme going forward into the series. It's something that is going to be explored in the future arcs for sure. And as Garo's darting away, he's able to spot Earth from a distance. Don't ask me how, I know it's light years away, but he's able to do it because he's Cosmic Fear Garo. He has an unfathomable understanding of all energy in the universe, so just go with it. And he says if it's in my range of vision, I can teleport there. So he hits Saitama with a nuclear fission fist and then hops in a hyperspace gate and goes to Earth. But Saitama is like instantly right behind him and he's like, wow, that move you got there, it's pretty nifty. And Garo, of course, is like confused as to how this happened. Saitama said, I had a stomach ache from the cold and was holding it in, but when I got surprised by that flash of light, a fart came out. And we see his fart has propelled him fast enough to catch Garo and go into the hyperspace gate leading to Earth. This is hilarious for multiple reasons. First of all, friggin' fart. And this will definitely give more ammo to the people that say this is a gag series. But it's also funny because a couple years ago, Murata was asked on one of his live streams, I think, that what would have happened if when Boros kicked Saitama to the moon, what if the moon wasn't there and Saitama just, got sent to space? And Murata said he would just serious fart his way back to Earth. So I think this sequence is actually a Murata original rather than just one writing it like he typically does. But Saitama winds up punching Garo back down to Earth, actually in the same spot that they originally came from. And this is pretty much the end here. He's hit him so hard that his face is cracked and Garo is basically asking him to just kill him. And Saitama says, compared to people like you with your quick costume changes, or King, I really hate the fact that I'm not cut out for this at all. But it's because I'm a hero. Not to mention, it was also that kid's final request that I stop you without killing you. So yeah, I think I talked about this like 2 weeks ago. People were asking me like, why didn't Saitama just kill Garo? Because I said that he totally was capable of, and I think that if any time Saitama really wanted to, he could have just ended the fight if he just, increased his power enough to the point of where he wanted to. But then I said, he didn't kill him because he still kind of sees Garo as like a human, and a human who's, trying to do the right thing, but just very conflicted and going in the wrong direction about it. But also he was honoring Tario's wish of stopping Garo without killing him. But after he mentions Tario, Garo looks over to him and he sees that Tario has like straight up died. This is of course because of Garo's cosmic radiation. We had seen that he was like infecting everybody and they had succumbed to radiation sickness for the most part, but we weren't sure if they had died. Now that Tario is dead, this means that like pretty much everyone else has died too. And of course this just breaks Garo. Like he's tripping over himself and everything. Tario was like the one thing in life that Garo cared about other than just becoming the absolute evil. And Saitama says, you've been acting really weird ever since you fell down from the sky. Are you sure some weirdo didn't do something to you? Garo says, if they did, it's because my spirit was too weak. Of course, talking about accepting God's influence inadvertently, but also he did kind of want it. I mean, he thanked him after all, right? So after this, it ultimately comes to the point of where Garo has accepted his fate and he realizes what he must do to set things right. And he asks Saitama for a favor. And basically that favor is for him to copy his ultimate technique of his ultimate ability, something that he hasn't even done yet. And we're going to find out that this is pretty much the ability to travel back in time. Remember, after receiving God's power, Garo received the understanding of all energies in the universe. And with that, he figured that theoretically he could go back in time. So he starts showing Saitama how to do this, and he's like, if anyone can master the power of God without taking God's hands, it's you. And then speak of the devil, God's like, silence, I am taking them back. This is pretty much what God does when he doesn't like what the person he's gave powers to is doing. We saw him do that with Homeless Emperor. He said the same exact thing, except instead of appearing in front of Garo like he did with Homeless Emperor, he's just instantly turning him into salt here. And salt is pretty interesting because there's a lot of religious symbology here. This could mean a whole bunch of stuff. It could be in reference to mummification in Egyptian mythology. It could also be in reference to like Christianity as well. Like in the story of Sodom and Gomorrah, there's a character that gets turned into a pillar of salt by God. Regardless, it just has some kind of religious significance to it. And it just ultimately correlates to God, who the character himself has a lot of religious influence from many different mythologies and religions and whatnot. But as Garo is turning to salt, basically dying, he's like, concentrate. And the narrator takes over and he says, the two of them were imagining their own inner universes, particles and antiparticles, generated in pairs by Garo's intense cosmic rays. Each subatomic particle began moving in opposite directions. They began to imitate each other's movements. When all of the subatomic particles inside of Saitama did this, and Garo says, now Saitama, get going and defeat it. You of all people can do it. What you've got to do is defeat that ominous future. And then Garo dies. And this is, I guess, us getting our cake and being able to eat it too, because this is a great fitting ending for the character of Garo. He's ultimately sacrificing himself for the greater good, even though he initially didn't want to, but he saw the error in his ways and made the ultimate sacrifice, which is just basically a perfect character arc for this character. But considering that Saitama is going to go back in time, essentially to an entirely different reality, we as the readers don't have to lose Garo as a character because he will exist in that new reality. But at the same time, we get to have a satisfying send-off for him. So, like I said, this is us getting our cake and eating it. But anyway, we see Saitama travel back in time and he's reliving his fight with Garo. And then he eventually goes back to the end of chapter 165. After Garo had blasted Saitama away with the gamma ray burst and announces to everybody that he is the ominous future disaster level god. Right before he arrives in that timeline, Saitama throws a punch, and once he comes into their time, the punch lands and just one-shots Garo. And it says that punch, abnormally powered up on the moon of Jupiter, went back in time and landed before it was thrown. So yeah, that means that Saitama wasn't using a level of power in chapter 165 that he's using in this chapter because of the stuff that we talked about earlier. So Saitama using this level of power can just instantly one-shot Cosmic Fear Garo, especially one who hadn't powered himself up trying to copy Saitama in the following chapters. And we get this incredible ending sequence here, very fitting for the ending of such an epic battle and an incredible arc. And we see that everybody's still alive. Nobody has been affected by the cosmic radiation yet because it hasn't really had time to fester and whatnot. And after receiving such a harsh blow, Garo just seems to lose his power that he inherited from God by being his avatar. This is actually in reference to the webcomic as well, but in the webcomic it was extremely ambiguous since Awakened Garo didn't receive God's power at that time. I mean, technically he did since he was a monster, but it was never outright stated that it was like God's power that was given to him. He more so just said like, the Godslayer fist is leaving me. But after Saitama lands the punch, we see that the Saitama that was in that timeline, who just got blasted by the gamma ray burst, suddenly merges together with the naked future Saitama, and they become one now. But it also causes a wardrobe malfunction, and Saitama's crotch is bare. So yeah, this is ultimately resolved by time travel. And I think it works because it wasn't Saitama that wanted to do it. It's not like he needed to do it. It seems like Saitama was just fine with living in that desolate future where pretty much all of his friends died of cosmic radiation. But it was actually Garo that did it and sacrificed himself in the process. So I think it works. But it's also a good way to kind of erase the fact that everybody is aware that Saitama is the one who defeated him, because Saitama was naked when he punched Garo. And I guess they're just gonna say like, oh, we couldn't really see who did that. And now that he's fused with his previous self, he's clothed again. So I think that's just gonna be the out here to everyone not being fully aware that Saitama is the one above all. And speaking of that, that means that Blast isn't really fully aware of it either, because it's in chapter 166 when Blast shows up and, you know, really gets his hands dirty and is aware that Saitama is the one who can challenge Cosmic Fear Garo. So now all of that's gone, and I guess we're gonna go back to Blast being none the wiser, possibly. But I wouldn't be surprised if Blast does know that some kind of time stuff has gone on, because, you know, he's Blast. But regardless, I wouldn't be surprised at all if God totally knows what's going on here, because if Garo can manipulate time and show Saitama how to do it, then I'm positive that God somehow can too, right? But Genos, who is alive now, winds up reuniting with Saitama, and Saitama still has the core in his hand. So now there's 2 cores, and I guess this means a potential power up for Genos. But yeah, that's pretty much it for this one, guys. Like I said, incredible chapter, a very awesome fitting ending to the battle and the arc. Really enjoyed this one, and I hope you did too. If you liked the video, please give it a like, and please subscribe if you haven't already. Have a great day. I'll see you in the next one.